Here at SuperSteer, we sell quite a few anti-sway bars, and there's different varieties of sway bars that we do sell. So some of them we explicitly state they are heat treated, while others we do not specify that. What is actually the difference? Well, today we're going to dig into what do we mean by heat treating and what difference does it actually make to an anti-sway bar's performance.
Tech Time Tuesday.
So technically, all of the anti-sway bars that we sell are heat treated and that they are annealed, but that's a different process than the tempering process that we specify specifically on the majority of our SS line of anti-sway bars. So what does that actually mean for the sway bar's performance? Well, you'll notice going from a non-tempered to a tempered anti-sway bar, quite a bit more sway control. In our experience, it almost feels like you've added about another 1/8 of an inch of diameter of anti-sway bar in terms of how the bar performs. So this has been played out repeatedly, starting with our SS101. We already had the 1139-148. We wanted to try that added tempering process and see what difference it made, and lo and behold, it made the bar perform quite a bit better. Since then, we found that same thing to be the case in multiple different applications of anti-sway bar. So just on the first level, if you're trying to decide between a non-heat treated and a heat treated version of the same anti-sway bar, obviously you have to weigh in your budget, but if you can go for the heat treated bar, it is going to have a higher level of performance than the non-heat treated version of the same bar. Next, let's dig into why that actually is. So now it's going to get a bit more technical, going to get into some engineering terminology. And so if I lose some of you, totally understand. But if you want to stick around to learn more, first, I'll ask that you like and subscribe so that you stay in the loop for videos like this and others. And please also let us know in the comments below if this kind of content is helpful to you. All right, you can look at a stress strain curve to actually see the difference between the way annealed steel performs and tempered steel performs. So what does that actually mean? Well, tempered steel is going to have a higher yield stress than annealed steel. So let's think about it this way. Think about bending a paperclip. So as you're bending that paperclip, you can bend it a certain distance and let go of it, and it's going to spring back to where it started from, right? Eventually, though, you're going to reach a point where it keeps bending, and now it's not going to spring back to where it started from. That's because you've reached the yield stress of that paperclip, where it actually starts to permanently deform. The other thing that you may notice is that once you reach that point of permanent deformation, the force it takes to bend it actually starts to diminish, and that's because the strength of that steel is actually really starting to drop, where now, instead of following that steep elastic curve of the stress strain graph, it's actually started to go into plastic deformation, where that curve tapers off, so you're getting a lot more strain, so more elongation or twist or stretch, without adding a lot more force to it. So if we can make us not reach that point for a further range of twist or bending, basically that's going to make whatever spring we're talking about, whether it's a paperclip, an actual spring, or an anti-sway bar, it's going to make that more effective because it's going to perform more consistently through a wider range of twists. So, and at this point, it's important to remember that an anti-sway bar is just a spring. So in its most simple form, it is essentially like a U-shaped spring that's getting twisted this way and that way as the coach is leaning, you know? So the more force it takes to bend that spring for a given amount, the more effective the sway bar is going to be. And that is where going to a larger diameter sway bar does provide more sway resistance. Now you may be wondering, well, why don't we see anti-sway bars bending or failing if that's the case? And that is a very fair point. It is important to remember, though, the stress throughout a cross-section of a sway bar, or really any kind of circular bar that's in torsion, that's being twisted, is not constant throughout the whole cross-section of the bar. It's actually highest at the outside and then basically approaches zero. That's why a lot of times going to something tubular is very effective, because the center of that material is doing a lot less to provide that strength in resisting twist than that outer ring is. So why that matters is you could have local areas where you're starting to reach that yield stress and the bar is starting to get less effective, but it's not happening consistently enough to where you're noticing a lot of permanent bend in the bar, or at least it's enough to where as the coach snaps back, then it's able to basically recover itself. So fully admit it's pretty rare that we do actually see failed broken anti-sway bars for that purpose, that you're typically not reaching the yield stress or the ultimate stress even across enough range of the cross section of that to where it actually starts to fatigue and fail. But in actual practice, we do find that, again, that heat treating the sway bar just makes them more effective. You're going to have more consistent resistance to that lean. So our main supplier, Roadmaster, a lot of the bars that they supply may go to more heavy applications, either defense or other heavy-duty truck bus applications. And a lot of those customers also specify a tempered anti-sway bar. So clearly there is a benefit in it, whether that's from a durability standpoint or, in our perspective, from a performance standpoint as well. Hopefully that was a beneficial explanation for you, just to understand the difference between the non-heat treated, or more technically annealed steel, and the heat treated, so the tempered steel that's used in like our SS101, SS110, SS218, 219, SS203, SS107. All of those are heat treated, as in tempered anti-sway bars. So if you're shopping for an anti-sway bar, if you have any questions, if you'd like to learn more, please reach out to us at sales@supersteerparts.com. You can call us 888-898-3281. If you're interested in having any of these parts installed on your coach, you can visit us at Henderson's Lineup. You can call us 541-479-2882, and also find our website, hendersonslineup.com. Until next time, we want to wish you safer and happier driving. Thank you.